So a couple of weeks ago, you saw a video of me going to Croatia to design a brand for a coffee shop known as, get this, the worst coffee in town. If you haven't seen the last video, the one where I was in Croatia, ASUS took me and Naomi to Zagreb, Croatia, the capital city of Croatia, to film a challenge. And that challenge was to design a logo for a random business in Zagreb. And it was all in celebration of the release of the ZenBook Duo. If you're an avid follower and viewer of the channel, you know that I ended up doing mainly lettering. The guy who actually owned the coffee shop named it that because it was like funny, but also because he is a designer that's quite well known in Zagreb itself. So today what we're doing is part 2 of that video, which is showing you how I created a brand. Now I've already done it and it's a very quick representation of what I normally do with work. As you know, you can't really consolidate me creating a logo and an aesthetic right in full view right now because that would just be ridiculous. You couldn't do it. So what I've done is I've taken B-roll shots and I'm going to attempt to talk over them and to help you guys understand my thought process. So here we go to part 1 of it, which is idea generation. So the ideas were actually created in Zagreb itself when I was at the coffee shop. You can see me drawing on the ASUS laptop. I was using the ScreenPad Plus, which is a touch screen and you've got stylus operation on there and it works just like a Wacom tablet. So I was using Photoshop to draw some ideas. Now these ideas were based around creating a vintage logo type. I knew I'm pretty comfortable with that. I'm not very comfortable in icon design yet. So I thought I'm going to do, a hand-lettered look for this because I love hand lettering. 2, I wanted to draw. I didn't want to just be sat there on Illustrator. And 3, I wanted to see how good the ZenBook Duo was. Now the ASUS ZenBook Duo is an actual really powerful laptop and it's really portable for anyone who wants to go around, travel with their computer and do illustrative work or even just browse the internet, create videos. You can do the whole lot on this laptop. The main features are pretty obvious with this laptop. You've got the 2 screens. The first screen is your standard full HD screen. It looks very nice and matte so it doesn't gloss around when you're traveling about with it. And that other screen above the keyboard is a touch screen that you can use a stylus on it. So if you've ever used a graphic tablet with a computer, then you know exactly how this works. And it's really responsive within Photoshop. There's no lagging or anything else. And one feature I want to mention before we get into the heart of the video is task groups. Task groups allow you to create a grouping of windows and apps that you've already got open straight away by a click of a button. So as I started drawing, I came up with a composition and a style that I liked, and so did the actual owner. He ended up really liking the work that I did. But I didn't really get to design a logo. So what I've done is I've come up with some ideas. So when I came back, I started to go ahead and create more ideas. I took the lettering that I did in Croatia and copied it again and refined it in Photoshop. I did this literally by drawing on the screen itself and having the time that I have now here in the studio to actually draw it out properly made a big difference. So I started with the ideas. Now what I wanted to do was consolidate the brand into one stamp because I know that they use stamps on their coffees when they're doing it to go. So most coffee shops do this with their paper cups. And it also helps that it was very hipsterish, this shop. So it means that I can just do my generic hipster design. So what I started to do was play with some typefaces. You've never really seen me do this before because what I needed to do was create an icon or a way of showing what the company is all about. And the best way of doing it without being too cliche is to just write it out and have an interesting composition with sans serif typefaces. So I did this and I came up with the most basic composition I could possibly do, and this is the starter of my process. I carried on working out which compositions would work better within this to see if it would actually be a productive thing to do. I wanted to see if it was functional and I got the aesthetic right, but the functionality, I didn't see it was there yet. So what I wanted to do was change it a bit. And I broke a rule that a lot of people don't like, but I kind of like. That rule was don't use another typeface inside of the logo type. I definitely broke that. So what I did was I used a standard script font in Adobe Illustrator and went to town on it. I chose the and in town as the script font because I wanted people to see in hierarchical and contrast sense. I wanted people to first visualize worst coffee because that made more sense to the actual branding project at hand. So I carried on and I made some mistakes and I tried to make the composition better. Basically what I fell to was this bad boy that you're seeing right now. Now there was something else missing, and that was the work that I did in Croatia, and I didn't want to just leave it because I came home and I vectorized it and I made it look really nice and I did everything that I needed to do with it. So what I intended to do was basically vectorize it and just keep it like that. But I realized very quickly that I could easily create an even better aesthetic that was just like, you would know that it's like a coffee shop for hipsters. It's where it's like the branding mark for hipsters. Now with the hand-lettered version of the worst coffee, I didn't know if I liked it or not being so perfect. Because of the way that I did it in Zagreb, it was kind of like, it's supposed to not be the best. It's supposed to be very rough because as the title of the coffee shop's name is the worst coffee in town. So why not have like an equally bad design with it, not in functionality sense, but in time. So instead of going around it with the pencil and doing all those nice horizontal and vertical anchor points, I just went and image traced it, and I did the one thing that you're not supposed to do. Luckily for me, the laptop that I was using was incredibly quick for Illustrator. It didn't take long to actually scan a 600 dpi image on Illustrator, and that means a lot. But then I fell into a trap again, which was you can't have like over 1,000 anchor points in your work. That just does not work. You do not want 1,000 anchor points in there. So what I eventually did was I simplified it down to the point of where it wouldn't affect the work and the paths would generally give me the right shape, but it was vintage enough to look like it was old and worn, kind of like this table on the backboard behind me. So I used that instead. I fiddled with it. I fiddled with the leading of the actual letters, and then I fiddled with the way that it was angled in the circle, and I did the most cliche brand for the worst coffee in town. So what I did was I made it into a circle composition so it could be used in other areas like a stamp or in a hat, because these coffee shops, they may put merchandise out or posters out, so I thought I'd give them that. The next step was mock-ups, because mock-ups is a huge part of the experience when you're creating a brand. Mock-ups stop the mystery of what the brand will be like. It relaxes both you and the client. Does it work in this sort of area? Yes, it does, because I can see it in the mock-up. It kind of bridges that gap between reality and fantasy for the client. So what I did was, for myself really, was put it on a few mock-ups to see if it would work correctly. Lo and behold, it did. It worked really well, and it didn't matter that I was fretting about whether it was functional. It worked on coffee mugs and it worked everywhere else, and it became a nice, very simplified brand. And there you go, that is basically it for the brand. Now, I just want to talk about the actual laptop experience for a second. Now, this laptop is a very good size. It's smaller than my other laptops that I use, and it's got a nice clicky keyboard that you can use. I always use a mouse when I'm creating the content that I do on the laptop because it gives me greater accuracy than using the touchpad. Now, one thing that I found for sure is that this laptop is great for anyone who needs a laptop, whether you're going to university or wherever. If you need a laptop for design that's creating media within Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and other Adobe apps, then this laptop would do well for you. Not only because you can use Illustrator, but because you basically have a graphic tablet right in the side of the laptop, and it's powerful enough. But also that screen allowed me to do other things such as use reference images. Not only that, it just allowed me to create quicker by drawing directly into the computer. Now, one of the coolest features that you guys would like is task groups. So what you do is you click on that little left-hand side and you basically have a task group. A task group basically remembers all of the screens that you've got on when you set it. So that could be Photoshop or Illustrator with Safari or Google Chrome. And then when you click on that task group again, it will all pop up in the exact same area. So I used that for Illustrator to make sure it popped up, and I also used it for Photoshop to make sure it popped up in the right areas. Thank you so much, Asus, for sponsoring this video and showing me and everyone else a cool laptop that could be used in a creative way. If you guys, the people who are watching, would like to check out the Asus ZenBook Duo and find out more information about it, please click the link downstairs in the description. Downstairs. It's the end of the day. And if you really like the video and you think I deserved it, please press that red subscribe button. It's free, and why not? It notifies you whenever I upload a video. Only though, if you click the bell notification bell, because that's the real thing that you need to do. So if you liked this video and everything that I said, press that like button. If you didn't like anything that I said or this video, press the dislike button twice, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. See you soon. Goodbye.